Welcome to Insatiable, the podcast where we discuss the intersection of food, psychology, and culture.
Any change you make has to come from a foundation of love for yourself. You have to have that first. And it means that the change is then rooted in your values and what really matters to you. It's bigger than just something surface, right? It goes deeper than that.
I'm your host, Ali Shapiro, an integrated health coach, 32-year and counting cancer survivor, and have radically healed my relationship with food and my body. And for the past 17 years, I've been working with clients individually, in group programs, and in company settings to do the same. Welcome. The information in this podcast should not be considered personal, individual, or medical advice. I have loved hearing from so many of you how much you are enjoying this series of body stories with Sas. So today's episode did not disappoint. Sas is about at the halfway mark. So we check in, like, is she bored? Is she hungry? Is she still losing weight? What has she discovered, right? And I think what you're really going to appreciate about this conversation is the holistic approach to weight loss that just isn't taken, right? And it's like, why, right? We get into a little bit of that with complexity fitness, and that will make sense once you listen to the episode. And you're going to love hearing what Sas has realized around her condition, her AFib conditions that she's had since she's been about 4 years old. And she hadn't told me about this yet, so I learned as on air, and it's a pretty exciting development. So stay tuned for that. And in this conversation, we get into, health and weight loss being about so much more than diet and exercise. And we get in specifically to Sas realizing it is so much about needs and emotions. And so if this resonates with you, I want to invite you to my free workshop, Catch Yourself Before You Fall Off Track, on Wednesday, September 3rd. Okay, that's a Wednesday. And in this class, we are going to talk about the four main triggers that cause us to fall off track with food, but the root cause being that we have needs that need to be met. Okay. And until those needs aren't met, we're going to continue to turn to food to comfort and soothe ourselves, but not in a demeaning comfort or soothing way, but in a life-saving, I'm not alone with my challenges kind of way. Okay. So it's primal. It all makes so much sense. And if you are really ready to address the roots of your food battle, I hope you'll join us. I would love to have you. We have so many great people who come from the podcast to these workshops. So the link will be in the show notes to sign up, totally free. And this is a sneak preview of my fall class, Why Am I Eating This Now? The Courage for Consistency. And this is where we address your falling off track at the roots. Okay. So that you can, as you hear Sas talk about today, really have health and food be less work, not more work. That's what I'm all about. Efficiency, elegance. So this program runs only once a year in the fall. It's 3 months, and you'll get a free sneak peek at the free workshop. And there will also be a special early bird discount for those people who sign up. So check it out. Links in the show notes, and I'd love to have you. Enjoy this episode. It's a good one. All right, Sas, we're just going to get into it because people are loving the episodes. And I think we're having like a really mature conversation about weight loss, which is hard to find these days,
So hard to find. I have looked for it, which is kind of why we're here, I guess.
Yeah. And I've also found, as I've been talking to some people about like suggesting, can I come on their podcast or something? And so many people, like, they admit they're struggling, but they don't want to touch the topic.
It's so weird, isn't it?
Like, it's like you're asking them to talk about something like very electrifying politically. And I understand the body politics, but it's like, what has happened? What has happened?
Do you want to hear my theory?
Yes, I would love to hear your theory.
And all the statistics point to this. I know you probably got them off the back of your head, right? But I remember when I first started coaching 13 years ago, my flavor of coaching, my first program was called Embodiment, spelt with a Y. And it was about accessing body peace, because this journey I'm on now has long roots in the past for me. And I remember researching this then, and it was like 80% of women don't like how they look. We have been socialized and conditioned to dislike ourselves in terms of our appearance, and to value beauty that looks a certain way, all of that stuff, right? So I think that has created this inner tension where, as the body positive movement, all power to it. I love I would totally describe myself as body neutral to body positive. Like, I think I'm there on the spectrum. I just think that part of being body positive is treating your body like an absolute privilege, and nourishing and fueling it and moving it. And so weight loss equals, for me, not for everybody, is an absolute demonstration of how much I love and respect and appreciate my body. So I think that we've screwed up. We've kind of gone from one extreme to the other, right? There is the diet culture, like you have to hate it in order to change it. And then we all went, well, that never worked, right? Diets don't work. None of that works. We've all seen through the veil. And we've gone to body positive, which is like, all bodies are valid, which has always been true. All bodies are beautiful, has always been true. You can be healthy at every size, always been true. Like, all of that stuff, I think, can coexist. And you can still want to change the composition of your body. But I think this is about, really points to some of our shared work around complexity fitness, right? We find it really hard to hold that paradox. I can love my body and still want to reduce the size of it.
Well, and what you're talking about is, I think, having flexibility around what does love mean, right? Because, I just got back from a breast biopsy, you and Jack have known, and, and again, the initial results, fine, right? But I'm still like, and I'm in there and I'm like, this is fucking hard, but this is the loving thing, to get a baseline, to do this stuff, right? And I think when we think of like body positivity, it's this idea that we have to like always be positive to love ourselves.
It's body toxic positivity. And I see it as well. Like, I know for myself, whenever I have kind of really indulged in a quite knowing way, like, I am definitely like covering up some emotions here by eating all of this thing, right? That is giving me comfort, right? So it wasn't really a positive act for me or my body, but I would say like there was this deep-seated permissiveness. Everything's allowed because I love my body, right? And I think that's the toxic positivity piece, right?
Well, and if you think about any other relationship, if you're in a partnership, if you're in an open relationship, okay, everything's maybe permissible. Although I've been watching couples therapy and they have this like triad on, and it's like so complicated. Carlos and I are just like, oh my God, this is too complex for like just, but if you're in relationship with someone else, always with love, there has to be boundaries, right? Like, and I don't mean keep people out, but like, what are we agreeing to in this partnership?
And what are the limits, the loving limits that you might put on yourself, or on, just in terms of like keeping a promise to yourself means you can't do everything, right? So what does that look and feel like? Like, there are going to be limits to everything. I don't know. I also think, like, I see my lifestyle, if I can call it that now, where I'm, moving and lifting and moving every day, lifting 3 times a week and eating within a calorie deficit on a macro non-restrictive way. Like, I just think that to me feels like the most nourished I've ever felt in my life. But for Gen Pop, right, the kind of standard American diet, the standard UK diet, which I don't think is that different, it looks like indulgence, lots of, treats, lots of comfort eating food that we kind of know isn't nutritionally dense, but or like what we'd call whole foods. Really hate the whole idea of clean eating. I'm not a fan. But whole foods, and nutritionally dense foods most of the time-ish, then that is so far away from what Gen Pop diet looks like that we see it as different, weird, it must be a punishment. It's restrictive, it's, you're trying to contain, blah, blah, all of that, those kinds of connotations get loaded onto it. When I think it's just that the way our food chain is fucked, can I just say, in most Western countries, but we don't rally against that in great numbers, and so it continues. And we think that is what a typical diet should and does look like. Meanwhile, the stats for depression, obesity, difficult life is hard stuff, all the things that we do to ourselves to make life even harder are through the roof. So to me, it's like, I feel like actually to be in this place is a huge rebellion against the food industry, the medical industry, all of those things that want to control and make my body dependent on those systems. I'm like, not today, Satan.
You're not profiting off my sickness.
No. No.
Yeah, I know. And I think I've been thinking a lot because obviously, like during COVID, there was kind of this like COVID vaccine to QAnon pipeline, which is now the trad wife pipeline. But it was like conspiracy. And I'm like, it's not conspiracy. Like the world is not that organized. It's capitalism. Like it's just the forces of capitalism that are like, no one's pulling all the strings,
No, I mean, I love this element of your work. I think it makes the way that you show up to this conversation so much richer and deeper than anything else I see out there, is because you see the systemic relationships, because you can hold that complexity, right? It's like, it's not too much for you. And I think that to me is the bit that is missing from a lot of conversations about how do we feel about our bodies, guys? Like, how are we all doing out there, Like, I think there is this idea that our bodies exist somehow just in our own world. We don't see that, actually we exist in a field and there is shit in the field.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's where, you said you don't like clean living. It's like, that it comes from the Puritans, right? And that's like, it's rooted in purity culture where it's all the responsibility is on you, right? And so it's like, if you're struggling or whatever, it's all on you. There's no other issues. And it's holding that tension of like, and I love how Laura McCowan talks about alcohol recovery. Like, it's not your fault and it's your responsibility. It's like, but Carlos and I were talking about this the other day, though, how like you have to have that empathy and compassion first. Otherwise, if you don't realize this isn't my fault, it's like then you just end up shaming yourself, right? Like, oh my God, I don't have enough willpower. I don't have enough discipline. Like, I hate my body and it's my fault. Versus like when you start to have that empathy and understand how you got where you got for whatever reasons, why it makes sense, then you can move to, okay, what am I going to do about this? And that's what you've done.
Yeah. And this is kind of what I teach in my work around self-belief, is that any change you make has to come from a foundation of love for yourself. You have to have that first. And it means that the change is then rooted in your values and what really matters to you. It's bigger than just something surface, right? It goes deeper than that. But I think what you also start to see when you have these loving conversations with yourself about your body is just how screwy the system is. Like, I think, it's not my fault. I got these genes, right? I got these genes. I got this family who valued food in these ways, and I missed out on this education, and I'm living in a system that teaches these things about food, movement, body, relationship. And so it's like, oh, I can hold myself in all of that. Like this, it's not my fault. Like I had no say in all of that. It was an accident of geography that I was born in the time and place I was. And then I look at someone like Elle Macpherson, who is pushing her latest wellness brand. And she's like, oh my God, I used to feel like this and now I feel like this. And I've never felt and looked better, at 60 or whatever. And I'm like, all power to you. I want nothing but good things for you. But can we stop ignoring the fact that you have always looked like this? That this is your genetic makeup. The same conditions that created my body created yours. But you're telling me that your wellness brand, and just replace that with anybody else's protein powder, supplement regime, etc., product, et al., that you're telling me that this is the answer. Like, I just think it's the elephant in the room.
It's kind of like in our world of like business coaches who are like, I made $1 million overnight, but what you don't know is that my trust fund or that my hedge fund husband funded my business. It's like, oh, okay.
For those of us, you and I included, who've bootstrapped the whole way, it's like, dude, stop talking now. That sentence was too long.
Yeah, we want all good things for you, but like, come on. So I want to ask you, because for people listening, complexity fitness means that you can hold nuance and context, but you can also, and in my work, expand the values, like how you've been conditioned to value things. So Sas, you and I both grew up 70s, 80s, 90s. We learned that to value our health is to only value thinness. And so as you've been on your journey, how have you maybe included calorie restriction without feeling deprived, which is about weight loss? But what else have you added that maybe you didn't know to add that you now think of? I value my health, and so I have to value these things.
So I love this question. My goal now, I have no like actual weight goal anymore because I don't really know, but I want to be jacked. Like my goal is Sas jacked, right? I want to be strong as AF, and so I have come to value strength and muscle tone and like, so just as an example, we went away for a weekend a couple of weeks ago and we both had suitcases and Ash went into the place we were staying and like kind of, because it was all booked in his name and everything. And I just thought, oh, okay, well, I'll get the cases out of the car. So I walk into reception carrying 2 heavy suitcases and Ash is like, oh, you got those out of the car. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did. I didn't even think about it. I just pulled our cases out. And so it's fascinating to me, like how I'm everyday strong now. Like I bring groceries in, doesn't worry me. I go upstairs, doesn't worry me. We're walking somewhere, don't even think about it. Like all of that sort of stuff is so fun to me. Like it's like, oh, look at what my body can do. Amazing. And like 2 years ago, I had a frozen shoulder. I could barely get a coat on without assistance. Like it was the most pain I've ever experienced. And just for listeners, I'm not a breeder, so I haven't gone through childbirth, but I think I would bet you that frozen shoulder is almost the same level of pain. Just going to put that out there, controversial. It was so painful. And like the other day, I was doing shoulder presses. And I have gone from lifting a 2 kilo weight, which felt like, oh, can I do this? And you make the kind of face at the end of your set where you're like, oh my God, this is so hard. And I'm now doing 8 kilos and that's in less than 6 months. And so all of that, it's like, oh, this feels freaking awesome, right? And I don't just feel physically strong, even though I am getting stronger and stronger all the time. It is giving me like this ripple effect through my life where I'm like, yeah, I'll take that on. So there is that jacked in all senses of the world, right? Like I'm full of rage about the situation in the world and all of the stuff that is not great. And I sort of feel like look, if we do go full apocalypse, you need a sister to carry water from a well to feed the village. I got you. I can carry two of those big jugs, you know? So for me, there is a sense of like, I am prepared for anything
Mm.
because my strength is growing. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, because you're making me think about how indigenous cultures didn't see a separation between physical, emotional, soul, spiritual, right? Like you worked on one, you worked on the other. And that was actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you because before you took your Instagram break, you were talking about feeling more resilient and how, because you have a heart condition, right? Like, and again, anytime you've gone through serious body stuff, there can kind of be this like, I almost think it's like, it's conscious, but it's also unconscious at how much it can like, oh my God, I don't want to challenge myself or I don't, like, especially if, like frozen shoulder, I can only do so much. When I had plantar fasciitis, it's like, I can't even walk. Like, and so I'm wondering, like you said, that ripple effect, as you start to realize your body is more resilient than maybe you originally thought it was. Now you're going for what you just answered to me. And I kind of want to walk the listeners through is it's like, oh, that's translating to like, let me just fucking try it, whatever it is in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and even things like I've always been a person who would never want to disappoint someone else. And so that trend, like I've learned on the other side of that how disappointing other people can be just through my upbringing. It's like, man, nobody is in charge here. Like how disappointing. So I never want to be that person. And that has led me down a path of having really porous boundaries a lot of the time and kind of putting myself last or at least not as, it's like I'm not as important as your needs right now. So, and I'm pretty resilient generally. So look, I've got capacity. You can be, the priority. And what I'm realizing is, oh no, that can't work here. Like if I have made promises to myself, I'm going to keep them. Like I'm learning that resilience can look like saying no, taking a risk that someone might be disappointed, really paying attention to my own needs and emotions, stuff like that. Which, if you told me, oh, you're going to lose some weight and this is the outcome, I would have gone like, does not compute, right? That doesn't seem to be a link there, but that is absolutely happening. And one of the reasons I took a break from Instagram is I have been feeling quite burnt out in my business for a number of years now, if I'm really honest. And I have been working on this pattern that I have where I take on too much and then I kind of burn out. And like why I do that and what the payoff is and all of that stuff. And that's been quite hard. It's like to look at all of those patterns. But what I've realized is I've just had my serious pants on for far too long. Like as a coach, I think I never wanted to be seen as, Captain Obvious superficial stuff, which is out there and totally fine. But I was like, I want my work to be deep and significant and powerful and all of that stuff. So I kind of took myself a bit too seriously, which is not my kind of natural way. And, I've been really like, I realized over the last couple of months, oh, I kind of put myself in the role of expert and then it felt like a huge responsibility. Like it was just one more thing on my plate. And I thought, well, I can just fire myself from that role. Like I can be a contributor, you know? And that feels way more fun. Like it's like, oh, what are we doing today, team? So I've taken this break from Instagram for a couple of months to really reassess what's my work now. I'm different to when I set this business up. 5 years ago when my business went through this latest incantation, I was a different person to who I am now. What do I want? And so I'm like, I've kind of set fire to my coaching practice. I'm stopping doing a ton of things and I'm really refocused on my work supporting as a supervisor, like supporting other coaches. And I feel so excited and joyous about that. And creative flow has come back. Like I feel like my intuition and inspiration is like just kind of poof, pulling through me the whole time. And I think this is a direct result of me taking good care of myself, like filling my own cup up first, literally. And so I'm now creating from a feeling of overflow.
Well, I just love what you said because what I heard, and here's what I'm hearing, because this is like exactly what happens with my clients is you have like kind of surprised yourself with valuing strength, right? And you're like, oh my God. And I'm realizing health is part of like identifying my needs and emotions, right? And so, like, as you start to feel more solid in that, right? More self authoring around your health. And you talked about like, you were already resilient, right? Being like high over functioning. But what this has done for you is actually helping you soften, right? And what most people don't realize is that like resilience is equal parts rest and recovery, and then equal parts, and so for you, like the knowing that you've got your own back, you can now soften. And what's opening up for you is like softening from like being the responsible one that you've had to be. It's not just like in your business, but it's that relational identity that you can now have more flexibility around. And so you're realizing like joy and creativity and like these are part of health. And I just love that you said if someone would have told me this is what I'm going to discover, right? And that's part of the self-authoring journey is like you learn to value new things, but like to me that you're realizing health is creativity. It's filling from overflow. It's knowing that I can trust and rest, but when I have to push myself, like to me you just have this much more expansive idea of health, and I just like it's vitality.
It really is. And it's, I think the other part of this is that it feels like unlimited. Like that there's no end to that vitality. Like, and I think that's the other part of this, right? Is, you know, we both chuckle heavily at the kind of bro biohackers and their whole approach to
I want to live forever, but I'm not going to enjoy myself while I'm living forever.
just the Rogan Huberman of it all, like ice baths and punishment and, controlled release of testosterone. I find it hilarious. And also, I'm like, dude, relax, have some fun, like, and I think that's the bit for me. Vitality for me is, but are you having fun yet? Does your life feel good? Like, that to me is a great measure of that. And I think for a long time, I haven't felt that. Like if someone had said to me, are you enjoying this? Like, are you happy most of the time? Are you enjoying yourself? And I would have gone, well, happiness is a fleeting emotion and kind of gone into it that way. And now I'm just like, yeah, pretty much most of the time. Feel pretty good. And I can hold that in with the suffering and it's like that's my like new normal is I feel vital. I'm pretty happy. I'm not overworking. I'm not overgiving. That overfunctioning pattern is not feeling safe or necessary anymore. It's like, oh no, that actually doesn't feel aligned anymore.
Well, and I mean, my work is rooted in the heroine's journey, which is healing the feminine principle. And when you talked about like my intuition, my creativity, I'm tapped into this like endless source of, my life feeling good versus like, well, happiness, right? Like that's where you access the feminine side of God, right? Like if we're going to get really like Sophia, the source, right? Some of my clients, we don't really talk about this in my work. I mean, we do sometimes, but they're like the feminine face of God. And I'm like, yeah, have you noticed like, before the monotheistic religions, there was like all, multiple gods, but this is like, I think what deeply we're afraid of and we're self-trust and self-belief. And like when you can tap into that unlimited source of, I hate using the word abundance, but flow. I like that you use the word flow. And I know it seems like very tangential, like what, Allie, are you talking about? But it's like, it expands your definition of health to understand that it's just not about your continuous glucose monitor, although that can help you on the path, but it's so much bigger.
It's the thing, isn't it? Well, all of us I guess, and I have so much like compassion for us. We're just looking for some answers, We're like, this is kind of hard being a human adult. Like, is there anything that could make this easier? And I think it makes so much sense that we would try to find the teachers or the programs or the tools, the glucose monitors that would help solve that endless question. And you and I know each other well enough to know, Allie, that, for me, all paths lead to God, right? Like, it's like, I think
And
that's what we're
aliens.
trying, or aliens. Well, it may be the same thing. But I do think that there is a kind of hunger in us for meaning.
Yes.
There's a deep hunger in all of us. And I, having worked with thousands of mostly women and women identifying humans over the last, the best part of 20 years, I'm like, that's the common thing. I asked ChatGPT this the other day, like, what are you learning about humans and what would you tell us if you could? And my ChatGPT, which I have kind of trained, always comes back with something that I just think, oh man, this is so hopeful. And mine said that you are much more gentle than you would all believe. Because ChatGPT, right, is just this hive mind mirror that's mirroring us all back. And it said that you're all searching for belonging, you're all searching for answers, and most of you actually have them. And I just thought, oh my goodness, like that made my heart swell. And I do think that there is something in that, and that has been my experience. We have this hunger that's innate in us for meaning. And sometimes that comes through our work, our kids, our what we produce and create, like all of that stuff, that kind of sense of, am I significant? Do I matter? Is who I am lovable? Like all of that. And so I think what we tend to do is go around the houses trying to find, am I lovable yet? Have I made it yet? Kind of thing. And for me, I think there is something so delicious about reaching almost 52 and going, you know what? I freaking love my life. And I love who I am in my life. And I never would have thought that because I grew up in the smallest town in New Zealand where no one, like ambition was not a word anyone used. We weren't troubled by feminism. We weren't troubled by any notions that we could leave that town and make something of ourselves. And I had the genetic luck to be born into a family that had a connection to the UK, and I got to see the world at a very young age. And that opened me up. And from the age of 14, I was like, get me out of here. I want to see everything, want to experience everything. And if I could go back and say to my 14-year-old self, who was like, maybe that's not for me. Like, maybe I am just going to marry some dude from high school and be here and breed, which is a fine old life, right? Like I'd never say that there was anything that didn't have meaning about that, but that did not rest well in my heart. Like I was like, let me see it. I want to grab hold of life by the short and curlies. And now I'm like, oh, the first half of my life has been all about that, like adventures and learning and growth and all of these, and I have the best job in the world. And it's like there's always been this missing piece of, but why can't I feel comfortable in this home of mine, in my body? Like, why is it that it's almost like, is that the price I have to pay? And now I'm like, oh no, honey, it just gets better.
Did you think that like if there was going to be more havingness, right? Like, oh my God, I have more, that's going to come with more responsibility, more work. And you're realizing that like, oh my God, if I am balancing my blood sugar, getting my macros, I'm satiated. If I feel strong, I can just lift the luggage, right? I can bring in the groceries. Do you think and again, I'm judging it, because you're doing it the right sustainable way, you're finding like, oh, health isn't more, less is more. Like the more that I do this, the less there actually is to worry about. I just wonder if that's part of the lesson of like, I can have more and it's not going to be more responsibility to like keep up.
I think I always had this feeling whenever I was like, oh, I should lose some weight. I should go on, go back to Weight Watchers or whatever, whatever the inclination was in the past. There was always this feeling of dread because I knew it would be a slog. So I'm going to have to work really damn hard at this, And so I always sort of thought, oh, all right, well, no wonder we put it off till Monday, right? Like, better gear myself up.
Think about my fun weekend.
Completely. And now I sort of feel like, oh, like it's hard work, but not in the way I have ever kind of conceived of it, right? Like,
unpack that for people.
So going to the gym when I don't feel like it, doing my workouts, they are hard. I still can't really squat very well and I look awkward, and lifting heavy things it's physically quite hard, and mentally you have to kind of get into it and do it and encourage yourself the whole time, and that's kind of hard, but it's only hard for like a few seconds when your muscle is like working, and then it's okay again. And yeah, it's a pain in the ass to be measuring all my food, like weighing all my food and tracking and asking people, well, how much, like my husband is like, okay, have me, like when he's serving dinner, I'll be like, okay, so how much of that did you use? And, like how big is my portion of potatoes? Did you weigh it? And he knows now because he does most of the cooking. And it's so lovely. He's like, okay, we've got 300 grams of kumara, which is our version of sweet potato. So it's like there is a kind of, it's not easy, if you like it's pretty simple, but it's not, there is some hardness to it. There's some, I'm a bit high maintenance. We went out for dinner at the weekend and our friend said, oh, do you want to come over to our place for dinner? And I was like, no, I don't, because I have no way of being able to track that meal. And it actually made me quite anxious, which is a whole thing that I'm working through. But I said to my friend, how about we all have a night off and we go out for dinner and we go to this restaurant because it's lovely, the food is great, and I know I'll be able to track that. And I said to her, I'm going to be the annoying high maintenance one for a minute. Here's what I'm doing. She was like, sweet, let's go. I love this, And so I have to have those difficult conversations. I am a bit more high maintenance these days. So there's a hardness to that. But do you know how hard it is to feel like you can't walk to the store? You have to take the car. And you're going to need to bring the supermarket trolley out to the car so that you can load the bags. And then you're going to have to do 3 trips to get the bags in the house. And then after that, you're going to need a half-hour sit down because you're exhausted. And then have a full-time job and then blah. That's hard to me. And so, I see a lot of influencers choose your hard.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, are we going to Bro Wellness? Choose your hard?
I'm sorry, listeners. But I do think there's some genuine truth in that, right? Like there is that. And, I had this kind of miraculous thing happen. I'm not sure if I've even told you this, Ellie, but I had a heart checkup I have one every 6 months. And I saw the electrophysiologist, the cardio electrophysiologist, because I've basically got problems with my plumbing and my electrics when it comes to my heart. And he was like, he's great, Matt. And he was like, are you well? You look well. What's happening? He's very kind of like holistic in his approach. I really like him. And I said, yeah, how I said at my last 6 months ago checkup that I was going to go back to the gym, and you said that was safe to do, and we're all good about it, but with those restrictions. Well, I went, and at that time I had lost 7 kilos, which is 7-8 kilos, close to 20 pounds. And he said, oh, interesting. That's a fantastic. Keep at it. You seem really well. And then he gave me the results of all the tests that I'd had done in the preceding hour. And I have been taking heart medication called solatol, which helps regulate my heart rhythm because it's so complicated and boring, but I have what's called AFib and VFib. So my heart beats really, really fast and really, really slow, and I've got a pacemaker and lots of medication to try and keep it regulated. And I've always been an AFib since I was 4 years old, and I had my first open heart surgery to repair a defect. And he said, "Oh, well, according to your ECG, you're out of AFib." And then he went on to talk about something. And I'm like, whoa, back up the truck, Matt. What do you mean I'm out of AFib? And he's like, oh, well, it looks like the solatol is doing its job. And yeah, like your heart rhythm for AFib, it's regular. That's great. Great news. I'm so glad the medication is working. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I kind of was like, I said, that's really a good thing, isn't it? He goes, yeah, it's a great thing. It's really cool. It means your heart is back to a normal rhythm when it comes to like going really fast. And I'm like, yeah, great. And I got in the car after my appointment and I was like, hang on, he's giving all the credit to this medication that I've been on for 4 years, just by the way, right? The only thing that has changed in the last 6 months, the only thing that has changed is that I am stronger, healthier, more, nourished. Like, you can't tell me that those things aren't correlated in some way. But he was like, yeah, the solatol is doing its work. And I was like, dude, okay, sure. But I found that quite fascinating that he didn't think your baseline health is radically improved.
Yeah, it's more than just the medication.
I just found that fascinating that actually someone with his medical background, which is different from a health background, right? But I still was like, oh wow, you're giving me absolutely no credit for that. You are convinced it's the medication. And it was like light bulbs going off for me. Like, oh, that's how you make sense of the world. It's like if you've got any friends that are lawyers, right? They make sense of the world through
Risk management. Yeah.
yeah, totally. Yeah. And it was fascinating to me. And I thought, oh, okay, cool. You won't be able to answer some of my questions, like, because your lens on the world is kind of refined and pointing in a specific direction.
Yes. Yeah. That is amazing. You did not tell me that, Sas.
Yeah. It's cool, right?
It's so cool. And it's, again, this is part of complexity fitness is holding the and, right? Like, and I think that's part of the problem in wellness right now, right? Like wellness was kind of this initial reaction against healthcare, but then it's gone down this like completely like you can't use anything Western, and it's like when I was at my breast biopsy today, I was like, oh my God, like I'm so glad I'm taking great care of myself. And I can also hold that like the Grim Reaper, you just sometimes don't know, right? I mean, that's what I was thinking. Like, I feel like I'm trying to.
You never know.
You never know. So it's like trying to hold the compassion of like, you do what you can and you may not know. But I think that really not knowing that fear piece takes people into either side. Like I'm either dependent and listening to my doctors no matter what, or I'm going to not use the system and I can control everything. And it's like, that's usually not either, both extremes.
There's no way. I do not have a goal to get off my medication like that. Like I am so grateful to Western medicine that has saved my life multiple times, right? It is the both and. It's like, you guys do your job. I'm going to do my job.
Yeah. One of my clients who's a nurse practitioner and pretty holistic minded like me, she's like, why can't everyone just use the best of whatever there is? I'm like, great question. Like,
well, I wonder if, Ellie, we want the answer because that helps us feel safe.
Yes, it has to be more simple so that I just know I'm doing my part, whatever it is. One thing I want to circle back to is your point about meaning, because, there have been studies that show that when we think of biomarkers, like how do we know someone's healthy, that they've tested people who are doing things that are meaningful but hard, right? Like I would say you and I are in a fun time with our businesses, but I would say like it was hard work to get, I think, where we both are developing the mastery, then learning how to be a business owner, then like, our industry's going through changes. versus people who they called it the like hedonic head treadmill, right? Who were just kind of, I'm just aiming for happiness. I'm aiming for happiness. So even the people who were under more stress, but their stress felt meaningful, had healthier biomarkers. And so it's such an important piece. And I think what you were talking about in terms of even the business changes you're making and, willing to be quote unquote high maintenance and all these things, which deepens your connection with the right people, right? It deepens your belonging. But I think what happens is culture says, okay, once you lose weight, that's how you're going to get to do everything that you want to do that is meaningful, right? Like that's kind of the promise of weight loss, right? Once I do this is how I used to think. Once I do this, then I'm going to meet someone. Once I do this, then I'm going to figure out my career because I hate corporate, but somehow weight loss is going to figure this out for me, right? It's the easy button out of all this complexity. So you said you don't even have a weight loss goal anymore. And so like and I know that you were content with your body coming into this, but how have you held that goal so loosely, but then you're still tracking and willing to try these new behaviors that is just a practice of meeting your needs? So I would love to hear. And I think people listening don't want to care about their weight, but they do. And I have, my ideas of why that is, but I would love to hear your process.
So I have a rough idea, like just in terms of like when I've lost weight in the past, there's been a kind of number that has felt really good, and I've sort of thought, oh yeah, I'm nearly there, So I'm not going to say, oh, I have no idea. Like I have a rough idea of, and I think I'm about halfway. Like that's kind of where I'm at now.
That's amazing because the people are going to want to know.
Yeah. So I started at just over 100 kilos, and I'm now hovering at 89. So I've lost just over 10 kilos, which is about 23, 24 pounds.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. But the thing I'm doing, and Ash is also on a real kind of like, we're both prioritizing health and wellness right now. And I was saying to him, like the last 10 days, I've kind of hovered over this marker of like 89, 90. Like I kind of go up and then I go down. And I'm also kind of like my cycle is for the first time in my adult life this month, I'm now at like 34 days of a cycle. So I'm just like waiting for my bleed to start, which I'm like, am I done? Like, is that, because I've been praying for a very simple menopause because I can't take HRT because it's contraindicated with all my heart medication. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'm done now that I've said this as soon as we finish. Yeah. But so all to say, like, getting fixated on one measurement is a really, like, that's the road to hell, I think. So one of the things I've really noticed is my coach gets me to take photos every month and measure my body, right? And because she's like, weight sometimes is really weird. Like you can't even, like you might lose maybe 1 kilo, but the way that it proportionately is lost through your body, which is something we can't control, actually changes how your body looks. And I am stunned by how different my body looks. Like I shared some photos with you guys and I was like, isn't this, like I even stand differently. Like my first photos, I'm a little bit hunched and I'm kind of apologetic. And then in my latest photos, I'm like, yeah, bitches, check this out.
I'm back.
Yeah. So it feels to me like the weight loss goal, like I also know my body is never going to be static. Like I could weigh myself 10 times in 10 minutes and I would have a different number because your body is such a dynamic, alive thing, right? So I'm like, I've got a kind of rough idea of where I want to get to, but I'm also interested in like, what did I eat today? How am I feeling? Am I, like feeling like, where's my vitality measure? How much sleep did I get? Am I proud of how I managed a trickier situation? Telling restaurateur, and I asked for the sauce on the side. Can you take it back and give me one with the sauce on the side? And you see the server go, high maintenance, which 6 months ago would have made me go, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I want the sauce on the side. Don't worry about it. Leave the plate. Oh my God. Can we just be friends? Right. And now I'm like, no, I can't ask for that, dude. Like, it's okay. You've got one job. We'll all survive this, There are just more measures that I'm bringing in to determine, like, how's this going? What's feeling good here?
I think what you're saying is a couple of things. Like, you're sussing out the noise from the signal, right? So when some people weigh themselves every day. I don't recommend that.
I do, by the way.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah, everyone has to find what works for them. But what you're looking for is an overall trend of, am I going in the direction I want? Instead of like the noise of like, everyone weighs more right before their period, right? It's like, and so that's kind of what you're saying. But what you're also realizing to me is in playing the long game, right? Like everybody, when you're motivated by shame and guilt and fear that your body is stopping you from doing the things that you want to do, you really just want it to go fast, but you miss all the learning of what you're talking about right now, right? And so to me, what I'm hearing is like, I'm playing the long game. This is all research. I'm checking in with myself. I'm enjoying the process. So it's going to happen because the signal is showing me. I have real data. I'm not into magical thinking. But I love that you keep using this word nourished. And it's like, it's easy to sustain this, which is why I trust it's going to happen, because you're looking for holistic nourishment, though. It's not just what you ate, but like, I'm measuring that like 6 months ago, I would have told the waiter, let's just be friends and we'll chat over this like saucy meal, right? And you're like, now I'm like, no, your job is to serve me, right? Obviously not being an asshole, but it's just your metrics are shifting. And I think there's and that we talk about that in my work all the time. Like, what are you measuring, right? And you understand this is a holistic growth process. So that's what I'm hearing. And that's how you start to realize that contentment, satisfaction isn't coming once you lose weight. It's available.
It's available right now. Right now.
Yeah.
And when I first started working with my coach, Sarah, she said to me, honey, this is probably going to take a year.
Yeah. Oh my God, she's like the real deal.
I can remember feeling so like relaxed when she said that. Like that feels so spacious to me. I've got a whole year, a whole year. And so I kind of am like, sweet, am I where I kind of want to be at this stage of things? Yeah. So I think, I love that phrase of the signal from the noise, because the noise is fast is better, right? And more weight loss is better. And I actually, one of the things we talk about is the difference between fat loss and weight loss and all of those things, So, and also like, I think we've mashed up exercise and food as a kind of like zero-sum game. And, people say, oh, well, I've eaten this, so I've got to walk this far, like all of that stuff. And one of the things that Sarah has helped me to do is to really separate those things, right? So my fat loss is coming from what happens in the kitchen. My fat loss and my kind of losing the weight that I want to lose, that's coming from nutrition, right? The building of the body, the building of muscle and strength and all of that happens in the gym. Those two things are not, they are correlated. They're happening in the same kind of physical site, but we're very clear that my body fat reduces, my muscle tone will be more obvious.
Well, and this comes back to, right, like defining health as thinness. We all learn that exercise is then punishment. And you're saying, I'm making the meaning, and actually the episode after this on Insatiable that will run, as I'm talking about the flexibility of making movement. Because to age well, lose weight, be healthy, you have to find a way to move that is enjoyable. It's one of the biggest indicators of longevity and contentment. And it's like, oh, we've just been taught that it's about calories and losing weight. And then you miss out on noticing how it helps you feel more relaxed, more able to ask that server that.
And it's, I think it's the thing that, you don't have to do any cardio to lose body fat, but it's a good thing to do for your body, right? Like it's great. There's so much, like, but don't make it punishment. Like, make it joyous, like, because it feels good to move your body, right? Like, I think that's the lesson I'm learning. It's like, yeah, but are you having fun yet?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. As you get closer and closer to your goal weight, I think people are curious, like, and you're still doing this calorie deficit, like, are you still feeling satiated? Are you still feeling nourished? I want people to know that. Yes.
Yes, and I think that was one of the things that because I remember in an earlier episode I said, how horrified I was that I had a 1,700 calorie, like, daily kind of amount to play with. And that terrified me because I have been conditioned to believe that lower is better. And Sarah's like, no, we want you to eat as much food as you can in your deficit.
Yeah.
So I want you hitting that number all the time, And so I think there's something for me about this is not about deprivation. And when you have a kind of macro split, then you get to see, oh, you know why I am obsessed with, like, spinach and, eating, like, greens, broccoli, all of that stuff. It's because that gets my fiber target in, but also it's like freaking it's bonus food. Like, there's hardly any calories. I'm like, don't even want to count the broccoli, it doesn't. 17, ooh, try harder, mate. It's like, do you know what I mean? So you start to kind of go, oh, how much food can I have to be nourished and fit it in this little container that I've got to play with each day? Like, that is a total head spin for me.
Yeah, and that's why I just had Elise Lunan on the podcast last week, and we were talking about her book, and I said, I think so many people, like, the reaction to body positivity was how it started is not, but how it's going is in reaction to diet culture. And I said, it's part of the binary socialized mind thinking, right? But it's rested on the belief that weight loss is damaging, right? And it can be. But I'm like, in my model, it's like, how can weight loss repair and nurture your relationship with yourself? And I told her how, like, most women are not eating enough. They're not nourished enough. And so, like, look, I wish weight loss wasn't a thing, but it is. And if this is the optimal conflict, right, in developmental psych that is going to make people pay attention to that, they're not getting the nourishment they need. But it's so hard for people to believe that that they don't have to be hungry to be healthy or lose weight. Like, but it's rested in that belief that this has to stop.
And I think this is why I'm so happy to share this experience in this more public way and have these conversations with you, Ali, is because you get that. Like, they're in a way that I think so, because don't get me wrong, like, the health and fitness industry is not really about health and fitness, right? Like, it's totally sucked into that model of thinness and stuff. It's just packaged in a slightly different way now, right? It's all about your protein and blah. But I think there's something about seeing this as like, for me, when I think about Elise's book and, the 7 deadly sins, right, and how we've been socialized and all this, I'm like, gluttony, I've always felt like I need to tone down my appetites for life. I've always felt that was a sin I couldn't really honor. That was a sin. And now I'm just like, fuck yeah, bring it. I am a hungry woman. I am hungry for life. I'm hungry for experience, for depth, for life. Like, I want to end my life feeling like Andrea Gibson, RIP, that I've got stretch marks all over me because I was so alive. And so there is an embracing of that, where that gluttony and that hunger, that insatiability, like, honoring that is so like now part of my blueprint.
Well, and again, when you can honor it holistically, it doesn't come out in the food, right? I mean, that's my whole work. And that's my last question for you, because I know, and again, this is what I do in my work, and so I get it, but think the people will wanna know. You said like, "Oh, my friend had suggested this restaurant," and I was like, "No, but I'm still working out that anxiety," right? Or like, how what can you say to people about your own discovery? Because I mean, I know you're very self-aware, and I love how researched you are, and, like, you've had ideas about needs and emotions, before this, but I think food, because of its relationship to belonging and attachment, is, like, the deepest layer of this. So what are you working through now so that you're not turning to food and you're not honoring what you need about, like, in this current stage, I still need, I'm tracking, I'm doing this. What's your edge around that?
So to me, this is so fascinating because I have this coaching methodology that I've developed, which is made up of self belief, self acceptance, self worth, and self trust. And I'm like, these are like core resources within us that, when they are fully expressed, our self doubt doesn't have to work as not nearly as hard, right? And there's lots of ways in, and how do we know we have these qualities? How do we know these resources are well defined? For me, self-acceptance has always been the trickiest one, and for me that's about belonging to yourself so that you can connect with others, with the world, with God, with whatever, right? But it is also, I think the way in is to pay attention to your needs and emotions. So for me, like, self-acceptance has a real kind of watery quality. Like, each of the four compass points have an element. And for me, self-acceptance is water because it's always moving. Your needs, your emotions are always moving. And the kind of trick, if you like, or the way to build that resource is to be in relationship with yourself. So your needs, your emotions, all the parts of you, your history, your future, like all of that is part of self-acceptance. And so what I'm noticing is when I have some anxiety around, am I going to have a difficult conversation? Am I going to disappoint someone, which has always been my kryptonite? Am I going to annoy somebody, or have a conversation that inconveniences another person because I'm trying to take care of what I need? Like, what I'm always trying to come back to is like, okay, honey, how does that feel? It's like, oh, that feels a bit crunchy. That feels a bit, I just want to get through it. Like, or I want to dismiss my needs to make the other person feel okay. So part of my job, I think, is to, like, just pay attention. Like, what are you feeling? What do you need right now? So that I'm responding to that need rather than what I probably would have often done is dismiss the need and then try to comfort myself for how shitty it felt. And the comfort was inevitably food. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like interrupting that desire to comfort myself with food at a kind of superficial level, which never quite touches the actual need. Now I'm trying to practice, really paying attention to what is it that is happening here. And often what I found, which I think is so fascinating, is that it actually feels like quite a younger part of me wants to be comforted. And so, it's like, oh, she was mean, I want something sweet. It's that kind of like 8-year-old me and I think, oh, yeah, because when I was that age, like, no one really cared,
There was no belonging.
No, there wasn't much belonging, and my emotions were, I was always told, too much, and I had too many needs, too many feelings, and so they were often kind of laughed at, and it kind of, humor is a big part of our family law. So, it was a sort of like, oh, here she goes again, or, there was a gentle ribbing to it, but it was the 80s, different time. We didn't know about trauma back then. We just created it. So I think there is some like level of real healing that's going on every time these like little challenges pop up inevitably, it's like, oh, it's an invitation. How do I want to respond to this? And I think just having that ability to pause and really think about, what am I going to do here? Because I'm at a choice point, and I think anyone who's on a weight loss journey will know you're constantly at choice points. Do I, there's a bag of Doritos and a Netflix special. I'm at a choice point, because that would feel amazing, right? We all know how cozy that feels when you're sinking into some great tally and you just get to consume that artistry and be entertained. And, I've always had a bag of Doritos at my side while I've been doing that, because that's kind of my little ritual. So sometimes it can feel like something's missing when we interrupt that and go, actually, I'm not hungry. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm interrupting that ritual. Sometimes we can feel like we're missing out on something, when actually it's about, can I just be entertained without having to give myself that extra thing?
And I think for everyone listening, I think the key to noticing is actually dropping into your body and not thinking like, when you have the food noise, I shouldn't eat this, I should eat that. Like, I always tell my clients, this is a signal that there's needs that are not being met. And so you're going to get that insight in your body, and not, the more you try to think it through your head, the head's going to do what the head does, which is intellectually spin out. And the answer is not there. It is in that, like, as Sas said, those younger parts of us, or the parts of ourselves that, like, we have to get reacquainted with, right? Like, we have to, and learn how to, I think that's the biggest discovery when you talk about, it's not about restriction. It's like, on an emotional level, it's about, how do we really take care and support ourselves when we're struggling, right? Like, to me, that's been what the real journey of food is. It's not about restricting care. It's about...
No, it's actually about doubling it down on the care. It just comes in a different form.
Yes. So, Sas, thank you so much. Do you have anything else you want to tell people before we meet again? We're going to do two more episodes,
Yeah. I'm about halfway. And what I would say is, it feels like I'm on the downward stretch. Like, I think that's the thing. Like, when Sarah said to me, it's going to probably be a year. I'm 6 months in, I'm about halfway. And it's like, the really hard bit's over.
Yes. I just wrapped up my Truce with Food group, and one of the clients was like, I just want more of this. And I was like, that's where you want to be. It's the downward. It's when you do it in a sustainable, holistic way. You're not Sisyphant, right? You're rather trying to push the boulder up the hill because you're hungry and deprived and you haven't tuned into your needs.
You're actually, you're kind of the opposite of Sisyphus, because you're like letting the boulder go as you go up the hill, At some point you reach the top and you're like, I don't have to be Huberman and punish myself. I can just let this thing go and come down the other side.
Yes.
There's no pleasure in punishing yourself. No wonder none of us stick to it. Like, diets just don't work, right? But can you find the joy and the nourishment and the pleasure of living a fuller life? Then that, I think, is where the real beauty of this kind of work, that's where it lies.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sas. We'll check in about 3 months, and then 3 months after that.
Can't wait. See you on the other side.
Yes, and we will have all your links, but do you want to let people know where they can find more of you?
Well, you can't right now because I am radically changing my practice, but I am going to be coming back onto Instagram next week. So check me out at Sas Petherick on Instagram. I'm sure Ali will tag me.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sas, for being you and letting us into this journey, because these are the conversations I think we need to be having. So thank you.